using a foreign key, and the dimension tables are denormalized. The dimension attributes are various columns in the dimension tables. Okay, and the dimension offers descriptive statistics of fact that will help their attributes. And there is no limit set for a given number of dimensions there. Okay, so it can contain one or more hierarchical relationships. Okay, that's what the fact table and dimension table means. Now, let's see different schemas which are used by the multidimensional modeling. The three schemas are there that we have seen listed that, but let's see, these are topologies, just like a topology that we use. The simplest data warehouse schema is the star schema because this structure is like a star. If you see the network topology of star, it's like that one itself. The star schema consists of a data in the form of facts and the dimensions. So these two parts are very important here in multidimensional modeling. Fact and dimensions. The fact table represents the center of the star, and points of the star are the dimension tables. Okay, so in star schema, fact table contain large amount of data without any redundancy. And each dimension table is joined with the fact table using a primary key or a foreign key. Let's see that. Primary key or foreign key that is common between each dimension table and the fact table is there. Based on that, the star schema is created. The first schema of multi-dimensional data modeling is present, where we have center fact table and others are connected in this way. Now, extension to the star schema is created in the snowflake schema. Snowflake schema is more complex than a star schema because dimension tables of the snowflake are normalized. Okay, they are normalized, and it's represented by a center fact table which is connected to multiple dimension table, and dimension table can be normalized into additional dimension tables. Again, addition dimension tables are the major difference between snowflake and the star schema is that dimension table of snowflake model are normalized to reduce the redundancies. Say this, normalized to reduce redundancies. So fact table we are having at the center, dimension tables are connected around, and again to that dimension table we will be having more dimension tables connected. This is called as the snowflake schema. Okay, snowflake schema is that. And extension to snowflake schema again done using the fact constellation schema. So fact constellation schema, it can have multiple fact tables that can share many dimension table. Many dimension, many fact tables that are connected. So this type of schema can be viewed as a collection of stars, snowflake, and hence is called as a galaxy schema also, combinations of previous all. So collection of star we call as galaxy. That's what the galaxy schema is given as a name to the fact constellation schema or a facts constellation schema. That's what the main advantage of facts constellation is. It's more complicated design. Let's see, gets one step ahead. Fact table, and around that we have the dimension tables connected. Check it out how they are connected to each other. Dimension table, then dimension to fact, again go ahead. So this is a galaxy schema connected, combination of the star, extension of the star schema which in the form of a group of star is called as the facts constellation schema of multidimensional data modeling. Yeah, so this is what about the multidimensional data modeling. Now we'll talk about few things that how do we visualize the multidimensional data. So we are having multiple dimensions to that. Let's see one example I'll show. The example is a it's a data set actually, and that data set is related to the qualities of wine. Just a minute, I'll share that. Yeah, see this. For example, this data set I'm having here, it's containing multiple columns. You can check it. This is a wine quality data set. So based on different chemical properties of wine, okay, they are the chemical properties of the wine, all of this. Different wine classes are created. What are that classes? Class 1, 2, and 3. Three classes are there. It means the output variable of this data set is categorical. Categories are present in this particular data set, and many chemical properties are there, like alcohol, malic acid, ash, alkalinity of ash, magnesium, phenols, flavonoids, like all. See, these all are the columns that the data set is containing. See, different sort of numerical continuous values is present for the respective class, and based on that the class of the wine is defined. So three classes are there, and different chemical properties. Just can check it out, all of these names. This one. Okay. And now so how many dimensions are there? Almost 12 different input, 12 different dimensions inputs are there for this data set, and output variable is a class. And now if I want to visualize that, so I can make use of such kind of method here, like uh, in a single plot. In a single plot, I have shown all of these entries together at a time. Okay, sorry. See this. Alcohol, where it is actually having high values, low values, then pH values, qualities, then okay, qualities are 4, 6, 8 are reducible sugar, volatile acidity, sulfates, fixed acidity, citric acid, chlorides, how they are changed. This is what we have probability distribution, discrete probability distribution is shown for every. So you'll easily know how the data distribution is there for individual element in it. Okay, next. See, so the first method is just a simple histogram. This one, simple histogram is there, and for this case, it is called as KDE plot, kernel density estimation plot. So KDE plot will be like this. Okay, KDE plot. Fine. Sulfate, only for sulfate is shown. So for every other, also we can find the KDE plot and kernel density estimation plot, also continuous values and the discrete value that can be visualized. Okay, this is called as a heat map. We have taken simple overview of different type of the visualization methods. Under that, there was a heat map present. Heat map represent the data in the color intensity, different color intensity format. So if color intensities are different, so I just have to check the intensity, and based on that we can find. See, rather than looking every point individually, we just change the colors. See the center. All values are 1. Okay, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, like that. And other wine quality attributes are also shown, like for example, citric acid versus quality related 0.9. Okay, the correlations are shown here. This is 100% correlation because they are correlated with each other. Now you can see density and alcohol, they are correlated with 69% negatively. Here also same way, correlation. So depending upon the intensity of that color, you can see here again high intensity is there, 72%. What is that? Free sulfur dioxide against total sulfur dioxide, 72%. Okay, and we have very low intensity is there, low intensity. Let's say for example this one 30. Chloride versus fixed acidity is 30%, or this is lowest. pH against quality 0.02% only. Their very lowest values are there in the form of the quantities, sorry, qualities that we can see. So multiple dimensions are there, multiple inputs are present, and based on that, this particular correlation map in heat map format is shown. The colors shows us the intensity of that respective data. It's called a visualization, one of the way by which we can use or visualize the multi-dimensional data set here. Next one, see, this is called as the pair plot. Pair plot, like 4 against other 4. See, here we can use density, residual sugar, total sulfur dioxide, fixed acidity against each other. At center, they are showing the KD plot for them and others. Okay, so this plot is residual sugar against total sulfur dioxide. Okay, you can see this one. This is fixed acidity against density. Observe it, it's linearly connected, almost somewhat. This also pair plot. Now let's see line plot for multiple different values of red wine and white wine. So based on value of red, based on value of white, so you can see how these values of density, residual sugar, total sulfur dioxide, and fixed acidity are changing step by step. White wine and red wine, how the differences are there, that you can check. Visualization of multidimensional data is possible by this particular way. Next. Okay, so this is a combination of scatter plot and KD plot also. So on the axis it shows KD, and inside it shows the scatters point. Okay, see, whole data is grouped together here, and here the where density is high, there you can see for both the angles. Multiple bar chart. So here, according to type of the wine, qualities are differentiated. Qualities are 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and under that, white wine is more. Okay. The orange color is showing it, pink color shows the red wine basically, and their comparison we can visualize by using the multi-bar plot. Multiple bars are there, and with the multiple bar, the plot is shown. This is one of the method. Again, combinations of multiple data that we can use. Now see, this is sulfate content in wine for red wine and for white wine. Both are shown at in the same plot, and frequency of it, red and white. Next, see, again, for multiple kind of wine, white wine and red wine, it shows the values of sulfate. The frequencies are there, combination is done. Okay, so this one is your white wine, and this is your red wine, and this is both the red one. So amount of sulfate and the distribution of sulfate is shown like this. Next, yeah, this is called as a box plot. Now, wine quality content according to the alcohol. Now see, you can check it out. These are different qualities: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Categorical variable, and on this side we have the percentage of alcohol in that wine. These are the ranges shown for quality 3 wine. This ranges 4, this 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ranges are shown, and all of their outliers are also shown here. So this is quality 4 contains one outlier, 5 contains many outliers here. Okay. 8 contains 1, 9 contains 1. Outliers are, and all of them we are visualizing at a time on this particular plot of box plot. So we have 7 whiskers here. With the help of that, the plot is visualized. Next, this is violin plot. Similar data is there, but its structure is something like violin. That's why it's called as violin plot. You can see what the ranges that they have. See this wine quality. Next, multi-dimensional again visualize the same pairwise plot but here again under it I am created 2 more part, red wine and white wine. Under it, this one, you can see how these groups are there according to density, residual sugar, sulfur dioxide, fixed acidity. Based on that, the pairwise plot is shown here, and under it again I have 2 more parameter, white wine separately and red wine separately. 3 dimensions I'm using here. Next, now see, based on the quality label and quality wine type, Okay, so quality label here low, then medium, and then high. And based on that, you can see for low quality red wine and how many white wines are there. Okay, for medium quality and for high quality. Fine. Next, same thing. I just zoomed again. Now see, multiple again. Wine quality and under that red and white different. Okay, according to percentage alcohol. Now you can see here categories are given 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, you can see their distribution of data, distribution of alcohol with the wine according to red and wine, red and white wine, and according to class, low, medium, high class, and then according to percent of alcohol is given over here. Okay, this is called a three dimensions. Three dimensions I'm using: residual sugar against alcohol against fixed acidity, and under that again red and white is there. Four dimensions. Fine. Next. Now see, same case. Red wine, this is white wine. And under it we have three classes: low class, medium class, high class. And we are checking volatile against alcohol. All of these graphs which are shown over here, they are created with the help of a Python package called as Seaborn. Seaborn library I have used to show this particular graphical representation of the data here, to visualize the multi-dimensional data. Okay, this method is followed. Yeah. So many methods are there to visualize or to use the multi-dimensional data. So two techniques are mentioned in this particular syllabus. We'll see this technique practically also, how to solve the problem using principal component analysis. So two topics are remaining. The first topic is this. Okay, we have seen the visualized graphs, but that is only visualization. But if you want to do analysis of it, then you have to follow some methods. Out of it, first method is principal component analysis. Second is linear discriminant analysis. Is not there in syllabus. We have having this only. Principal component analysis. A multi-dimensional data set and their analysis is done with the help of PCA. One more is that it's a clustering method. PCA is basically used for the classification or supervised learning, and clustering technique is for unsupervised learning there. Okay, so let's see the first one, visualization method for multi-dimensional data. Now, it's a very interesting concept. Practically also you can see the things how they are implemented. Now, large data sets are increasingly common and often difficult to interpret. Question or the problem actually. So let's see that. I show one data set here. See this. Okay, check the data set. This is Wisconsin breast cancer analysis data set. Okay, the woman who got the breast cancer, so they are detected, not detected. That two information is presented here. Multiple patients are there, patient ID is mentioned, and they are detected the tumor in the body. Okay, and that tumor is having some measurement in it. Some measurements are given, and these measurements using microscope are extracted. What are that? See this one: radius mean, texture mean, perimeter mean, area mean, smoothness mean, compactness mean, and concavity mean, concave point mean, symmetry mean, fractal dimension mean. Done. Again same value in SE format. SE. Done. Same values in worst format. Likewise. So these values are taken: 10 mean value, 10 SE value, 10 worst value for different dimension. 30 features are there in this. 30 features. Now, if 30 features are there, how your algorithm will become complex. And if you're in dysentery, so you can think of it. In dysentery, we have taken example of two features only, two dimensions only. One feature on one dimension and the another dimension. If I want to use 30 features. So how many graphs will be required? 29 into 30, that number of graphs will be required, and that will become too much complex for a machine learning algorithm to analyze this data, because number of dimensions are huge. 30 are there. This is your output variable. Okay, so based on these inputs, what was the diagnosis? Okay, whether the tumor was malignant or benign. Malignant means it was having the cancer. Benign means it was healthy, just a tumor, just a tumor detected. It's not a cancerous tumor. Okay, so these features we can use, and we have to apply some criteria to reduce the number of dimensions needed for building a classifier. Classifier, because your output is M and B only. Okay, so principal component analysis is a technique for reducing the dimensionality of search data sets. We're having high dimensions, increasing interpretability, but at the same time minimizing information loss. How it's possible? Dimension reduction and loss minimization is also there. Both we are going to take at a time. So it does so by creating a new uncorrelated variable that successfully maximize variance. Variance is amount of information that the particular data set is having. So variance, there are some formulas there presented there. So finding such new variable, the principal components, reduces to solving eigenvalue or eigenvector problem, and add new variable are defined by dataset at hand, not priori, hence making PCA an adaptive data analysis technique. Adaptive data analysis. This is a technique which is used to reduce the number of dimensions required for the dataset. So number of feature reduction can be there. So this concept generally we term as a dimensionality reduction. Dimensionality reduction. What is that? Dimensionality reduction or dimension reduction is the process of reducing the number of random variables under consideration by obtaining a set of principal variables. Random variables reduction by obtaining a set of principal variables. Principal variables, like out of all the data, which particular variables are having maximum amount of information in it, so that the classifier can learn the things easily. Machine learning algorithm can learn the thing easily. Fine. So two tasks that are present in dimensionality reduction. First is called as feature selection and feature projection or extraction, that's called as. Feature selection approaches try to find a subset of original variable. They're called as features or attributes. Feature means you provide the input to your machine learning algorithm, data science algorithm, that's called as the features. Label means output variables. Okay. So in feature selection, we try to find a subset of original variable, which is called as features, and in feature projection or feature extraction, transform the data in high dimensional space to low dimension space. High dimension space to low dimension space. That is what we are going to make use of in dimensional reductions. Feature selection means out of all the features, we will extract specific feature which are having high impact in the output. Okay. Feature selection and feature projection extraction, it transforms high dimensional data to low dimensional data. What exactly it does? But there are some statistical methods which are applied by PCA, and by that it is possible to get this. It merges some correlated variables and it removes some unrelated variables also, and based on that the result is identified of dimensionality reduction. Now, what is large dimension? But the large number of features in dataset is one of the factor that affect both training time and accuracy of machine learning models also. Make sure we are having high amount of 30 columns are there. So how much time algorithm will take to train? High. Bigger than the data set which contains 2-3 features only. And even it may be also possible that accuracy of algorithm will decrease drastically. Now we have different options to deal with the huge number of feature data set. What is that? Now see what we will do in such cases. We will try to train the model on original number of features, which takes days, weeks, if the number of features are high. It's actually the case. When a data set is very high, number of rows are great and number of columns are also very large number. In that case, algorithm will take many years, sorry, not years, many days to get trained. And after that, a perfect model will be created. Okay, a perfect model is created after that. So what we will do in this, we'll reduce the number of variable by merging correlated variables. That's possible. Correlated, is it correlated variable? We can find it by using the correlation coefficient. We can find it, or logic also that we can apply. What is that? Let's say in a data set, two columns are there. First column is date of birth, second column is age. Related? Yes, they are correlated to each other. The date of birth and age. Age is calculated from date of birth. So keep any one of them or delete one of them. They are correlated. So you can merge or you can delete. That's what's possible is that. So number of dimension will be reduced. Then extract the most important feature from the data set that are responsible for maximum variance in the output. Maximum variance in the output, okay, which contain maximum variance, only that features are considered in generation. We have seen concept of variance practically also. Variance, standard deviations. So the feature which causes maximum variability, maximum variance in the output, only that features are considered by principal component analysis. So different statistical techniques are used for this purpose to check or to extract the data which is having highest amount of variance in it. And this is called as LDA, like linear discriminant analysis, factor analysis, or principal component analysis. These three methods are there which are used for that particular operation here. Remember. Okay. Fine. Now let's go in detail about PCA. We'll see the algorithm also, how exactly the algorithm is working for PCA. So PCA is a statistical technique to convert high dimension data to low dimension data by selecting most important feature that captures maximum information about the data set. Okay, that captures maximum information about the data set. Remember, that's what the PCA will do. The features are selected on the basis of variance that they cause in the output. The variance that they cause in the variance that they cause in the output. That is what deviation that they cause in the output. The feature that causes high variance is called as a single feature. It's called as first principal component. And the feature that is responsible for second highest variance is considered as the second principal component, and so on. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, like principal components are there. It is also important to mention that principal components do not have any correlation with each other. Okay. So as I told, correlated variables are deleted or they are merged. This is done by principal component analysis. What are the advantage of using it? Let's see. Uh, common advantages, like the training time of algorithm reduces significantly with less number of features. Obviously, when you reduce the number of features, so the time required to train the algorithm for given data will also be less. Fine. And second advantage, it's not always possible to analyze high dimensions data. So for instance, if there are 100 feature data set, total number of scatter plot required will be 100 into 99. Sorry, 100 into 49. This one, 49.5. So 4950. That number of plots, scatter plots, will be required to visualize your data. But practically, it is not possible to analyze the data in this particular way. Fine, because number of features are very great and visualization will not be also supported. So PCA will be used to do this particular operation, but there is a concept called a normalization of feature. We'll having that one again. Uh, it's imperative to mention that feature set must be normalized before applying to PCA. For instance, if the feature set has the expressed in unit of kilogram, light years, or millions, the variance scale is huge, and in the training data set, see one thing, statistical technique, data science technique, they don't actually work on magnitude of the data. If magnitude is higher, then you are winner. It's not the case. They work on relationship among the data. Is it? Okay. They work on relationship in the data. So if relationship changes, your output will change. But if your magnitude changes, then output must not change. Magnitude, size of the data. Okay. And if magnitude is affecting the output, then we have to normalize the data. Okay. If magnitude is affecting the output, that we have to normalize the data. So if you have units of scale like kilograms, light years, or millions, many are there. Different variance scale is present in training data set. In that case, we have to apply the PCA. So if PCA is applied on such feature set, the resultant loading for features with high variance will also be large. Hence, principal components will be biased towards features with high variance, leading the false truth. Correct. Because one feature is very high. That's why we have to scale the data with the same range. Okay. Finally, the last point to remember is that before you start, okay, coding I'll show you at the end of this session basically. PCA statistical technique, it can be applied only to the numerical data. Therefore, categorical features are required to be converted to numerical feature before PCA can be applied. Okay, get it? Now, what are the steps that are undertaken in PCA, principal component analysis? So first step is standardization, which I talked about. Normalize the data. Okay. Then second is covariance matrix computations. So what is covariance, that we also see. Then next is compute, sorry, align eigenvector and eigenvalues. Then the fourth one, create the feature vector. And the last, recast the data along the principal component axis. So these are the common steps that PCA will do. Let's go step by step. Okay, the standardization or normalization we call. Now the aim of this step is to standardize the range of continuous and initial variables so that each one of them contributes equally to the analysis. Each one of them contribute equally to the analysis. That is what standardization is done. Now what's the meaning of it? See, I'll just show you one data set here and then we'll talk about it. So this concept is very common is in data science. If I am having something, if I have a x value something like this, now for example I have x and y are the input features, okay, and z is the output label, output variable presented here. Getting? Okay. Now what do you think, which variable will have high impact in the output, x or y? X. Why? Because the values present in x are higher than y. y will have negligible impact in the output. Negligible, because y is very low. The values are lying from 1 to 6. Minimum value is 1, maximum value is 6. Correct. And for x, high impact will be there because its magnitude is higher. That's why impact will be higher. It means that if you use y or you don't use y, z will not change. Much will change, but very negligible impact will be there. If you put a formula, something like this, if I write z, z is equal to 3x plus y. Now see, if you delete y, then also how much impact will be there? No impact, because this is 6, 2, 1, 1 is present. So 3x will be good directly. Y is not having any impact. But remember, in machine learning algorithm, this should not be the case. Every variable should be treated equally in the output. Every variable, every dimension should be treated equally from the output point of view. Getting it? So what we do, we normalize the data. Normalize the data. So in that, two methods are there. The first method that we call is standardization. The second method is called as normalization. So in standardization, what we do, standardization, we make standard deviation is equal to 1. Deviation in whole data set is equal to 1, and for this case, we keep the range of element 1, 0 to 1, scale down or scale up, whatever. See, this is a statistical method which are used very commonly in data science. I have to standardize the data. Standardization will be making the deviation equal to 1, and normalization means we keep the data in the same range. This is called as 0 to 1 range. I'll show one example of it and why it's required. So basically, when high magnitude data is there, they will have high impact in the output. But we don't need it. We have to scale down or scale up the data within the same range. We'll talk about it. There are some methods which are followed here. More specifically, the reason why it's critical to perform standardization prior to PCA is that latter is quite sensitive regarding variance of initial variables. So everyone will have different variance, and that variance is calculated with the magnitude. If magnitude is different, variance will be different. That is, if there are large difference between the ranges of initial variables are there, those variables with larger ranges will dominate over those with the small ranges, or those with the small ranges. Remember, that's why we have to normalize the data, standardize the data. Mathematically, this can be done by subtracting the mean and dividing the standard deviation for each value of the variable, like value minus mean divided by SD. So once the standardization is done, all variables will be transformed to the same scale. Let's see that. Wait a minute. Check this. This is very commonly used in all data science applications when you're applying the machine learning algorithm there. And then we'll check. See, for example, I'm having a data set with me. Wait. Okay, wait. See this. See, social networking ads, and in that I'm having two variables as input. Estimated salary and age, and y contains df of class. Sorry, that class purchased. I'll show you. See, these are two columns are there in the input. Estimated salary of the person and the age. You can check estimated salary range is different and age range is different. So when we build the classifier or any machine learning algorithm, it will not perform well. It may not generate the correct result. may not. Let's see that. I'll show you whether it is done there or not. So, and then we will check the result after standardization. Then we'll check how PCA is performing operations. So from scale learn, let's use model selection, and then we'll try to split it. Now we'll import the classifier here. Let's say, for example, there's a classifier of logistic regression I will import. And let's create the object of it. We have seen many techniques, just a example of effect of normalization that we are going to see here. So CLF, logistic regression, then create the object of it. Done, then predict it. Okay, fine. And then we'll build the accuracy. Okay, we have predicted on remaining data. We have splitted this data, and then we have done all tasks. We have seen that already. And let's check the accuracy of it. And print the accuracy score, y test and y grade. See, the data set, what I have done, I imported this data where two variables are inputs, estimated salary and age. Output is purchased. Purchase means 0 and 1, 2 are there. And then we have just started with creating algorithm. I just splitted the data for cross validation, X train, X test, Y train, Y test. Okay, splitted. Then I'm using this model logistic regression. So we can use other also, but let's see logistic regression. Created the object here. Then we have trained the algorithm, and after that we have predicted the result for remaining entries. Okay, I think 100 data is there, 300 in training and 100 in testing. So that 100 I applied, and I got this. Because why it has happened? Because the scale you can see, first and second data. Okay, first column and second column, they're having different variance, different ranges are there. Okay, that's why I got 68% accuracy only for this data. Whether this person is purchasing that item or not purchasing, that is 0 and 1 are shown in the output pattern. You just can check the y contains two different things, 0 and 1 are there. So whether you, based on that salary and age, you're purchasing it or not purchasing, that will be shown. Okay, fine. And we got the accuracy score like this, 68% here. If you change the algorithm, like for example, I'll make use of some different algorithm, like let's say decision tree. Sorry. And here we'll apply that decision tree classifier. So decision tree classifier, I have 91% accuracy. Why? Decision tree classifier don't require the scaling. That's how I told. Random forest and decision tree, these two classifier don't require the scaling. They will directly take the data and see. Accuracy for decision tree is 91% here. Okay, and for logistic regression it is coming 68% only. Okay, so why this has happened, that we'll see. So the algorithm which are based on probabilities, which are based on some Euclidean distance formulas, so that algorithm generate the result based on the magnitude. So 68% is there for logistic regression. What has happened now? Because the ranges of both of these are different. Okay, so let's see this. Like I'll describe this. See, here 400 values are there, but the deviation of both are different. See, 34,000 is the standard deviation for salary and age is 10 only. Completely different deviation. Minimum value 15,000 here 18 only. Here maximum 1,50,000 here 60 only. So completely different variables are there. That's why I am not generating the correct result there. So what we will do, we'll scale, which is done over here using this formula. Standardize it. First we'll shift standardization. Now see, it's a part of pre-processing technique. Standard scaler. And now scale this data. Okay, so I have scaled this data, and what it does, this scale will make deviation of both of these columns same. Deviation, both of these columns same, which is equal to 1. Standard deviation will be 1. Now see, I'll show you standard deviation for this. What exactly it has done for X scaled. Now see, first column standard deviation is 1.00125 and second column deviation is 1.00125. Both are same. By using the formula presented here, it has done. Now this scaled data I will apply here. And then see the accuracy. 89%. Scale data applied, then I have done the trend test split, and then I have checked how much accuracy is presented there. Now I got 89%. So because the one feature was dominating, and that feature we have scaled down, we have standardized the data, and after that we have given this data as input to the algorithm, and we got the result 89% accuracy improvement. So almost 21% improvement in the accuracy we achieved by this method. 100%, 89% accuracy. And this is what we call as the standardization, this method. And another is there called as normalization, which is min max scaler. That's what it does. Now see, what min max scaler does, it has scaled down both of this column without changing relationship. Okay, with minimum value 0, maximum is 1. And they are scaled within that range. They are scaled within the range of 0 to 1. Scale down. Okay, and now this scale data I'll apply here and then check the result. No change in the accuracy. Okay, either I can use standardization or normalization to check it. The difference is that standardization make the deviation equal to 1 and normalization makes the data in the same range of 0 to 1. Fine. And after that, I can improve the accuracy of the given classifier or the regression algorithms there. Okay, because variance in scale and magnitude is there, that can be removed from the method of standardization and the normalization, which is required in the PCA. First step. Second step, covariance matrix computations. Now, the aim of this step is to understand how variables in the input data set are varying from the mean with respect to each other. Okay, varying from the mean with respect to each other, how they are varying, that is identified. Or in other words, to see if there are any relationship between them is present. Any relationship is there. So variance, covariance, that's what it's called as. Because sometimes variables are highly correlated, but such a way that they contain redundant information there. Duplication information is present. That's why they are correlated. So in order to identify these correlations, we compute the covariance matrix. This I told about the concept, like date of birth and age are correlated completely with each other. Either we can choose date of birth or we can use age as the feature. So we can remove one of them. To identify that, we are having the concept of covariance matrix created. This is how the covariance matrix is identified. 3 features. Okay. xx, xy, xz. So if three features I am having, so the matrix of 3 by 3 will be created. X, Y, Z. So first covariance of xx, then xy, xz, yx, yy, yz, zx, zy, zz. Okay, fine. And after that, we can identify which values are correlated to each other by any means. Okay, so let's see, what do covariances that we have entries of the matrix tell us about correlation between variables? Actually, it's a sign of covariance that it matters. Like if the covariance is positive, then the two variables are increased or decreased together, they are correlated. If it is negative, then one increases, then other decreases. That we have seen correlation concept. Same is applicable over here. Now that we know, the covariance matrix is not more than a table that summarizes the correlation between all possible pairs of the variables. Okay, see that, for example, here in this case, see, this is covariance matrix, COV, which is generated by this PCA will do that. Internally it does it. I'm just showing step by step. So how they are connected, what amount of variance is generated by one on other, one column on other column, that is shown over here by using covariance matrix. And if you want to see correlation matrix, so you can have df dot corr, this correlation matrix, how they are correlated to each other. See, I think correlation is not there. Here it is 62% is present. 36, this is 0.07 like all. Fine. So they are calculated. So to identify that, is there any variable which are same or which are correlated? So you can remove that or we can merge. So to have that, to perform the operation, this covariance matrix computation is done. And then the next step will perform operations of eigenvalues and eigenvector calculations. Okay. So as you know, eigenvectors and eigenvalues are in the linear algebra concept that we need to compute from covariance matrix in order to determine the principal component of the data, which component or which features are having maximum variance in the output that we can find by this method. So before getting the explanation, let's understand what do you mean a principal component. Principal component are the new variable that are constructed as a linear combination or mixture of initial variables. Linear combination or mixture. These combinations are done in such a way that new variable, that is principal components, are uncorrelated, and most of the information with initial variable is squeezed or compressed into first component. So the idea is a 10 dimension data gives you 10 principal component, correct? Everyone will have the variance present in it, but PCA tries to put maximum possible information into first component, the highest variance will be there in it, then maximum remaining information to second, and so on. Okay, so until having something like shown. Okay, I'll show you one plot here, this one. First component maximum variance is the maximum information, second component, then third, then fourth, then fifth, then sixth, gone. In this way, the variance caused by a component will be taken. So if you want to use three principal components, I can use first three variances, 4 first 4, 10 first 10, like all. So eigenvector and eigenvalues will provide that. Fine. Now organizing information in principal components this way will allow you to reduce the dimensionality without losing much information, and this by discarding the component with low information and considering remaining component as the new variables. That's what possible. Some variable may not have good information, some are having information. Okay, so in that case we will use the variable which are having high information present in it, and we'll discard which don't have information or that can be directly deleted also. So important thing to realize that the principal component are less interpretable and don't have any real meaning since they are constructed as linear combination of initial variables. So, geometrically speaking, principal components represent the directions of the data that explain maximal amount of variance. Maximal amount of variance. That is to say that the lines that capture most information of the data. That's called as principal components. As there are many principal components, as there are many variables in the data, principal component are constructed in such a manner that first principal component account the largest possible variance in the data. Largest possible variance in the data. So how it is done? Let's see that one. Okay, we'll take a break of 5 minutes and then we'll continue after. Just a minute. So let's continue. So principal components as the variables which contains the maximum information in it. So as we see, first principal component will have largest possible variance in the data set. For example, let's assume that a scatter plot of a data set, I'll show you a scatter plot which will show what's the first principal component will be there. See, you can see this one. The line is shown here. Wait a minute. Let's see that line in detail. A minute. Okay, no issues. So this line is present, and I'm just going to revolve this particular line among the third axis. Okay. So where the principal component identify, where highest amount of variance is present. Okay. So line is at this angle. Maybe it will change. It will revolve like that continuously. So continuously the data or the distance between the center of the line and the point will get changed. Okay. So approximately the line matches the purple mark. See here, it matches their exact value of that line will be present. Okay, because the origin and the line which is projection of the point are most spread out. That's why. Or mathematically speaking, it's a line that maximizes the variance, the average of square distance from the projected point. That is what we call as the square distance, mean square error distance that's calculated that we can have. Okay, and based on it, the variance calculation is done. This method is followed to calculate the variance between the data points. Let's take an example here. Suppose that our data point is two-dimensional with two variables x and y. Okay, and that eigenvectors and eigenvalues of covariance matrix are like v1 with some values, lambda 1 values we got, v2 is also some values, and then lambda 2 values we got. So if you rank the eigenvalues in descending order, we get lambda 1 is greater than lambda 2, which means that the eigenvector that corresponds to the first principal component is v1, and the one correspond to second principal component is v2, like that. In this way, this is calculated, very big calculation that it contains, and based on that, the final step, feature vector is created. Feature vector is created. So as we saw in previous step, computing the eigenvector and ordering them by their eigenvalues in descending order allows us to find principal component in order to find the significance of it. So in this step, what we do is we choose whether keep all these component or discard those which contains less significant, low eigenvalues there, and form the remaining ones in the matrix of vectors called as a feature vector. Feature vector will contain the element which contains highest information gain within it. So feature vector is simply a matrix that has as columns the eigenvectors of component that we decide to keep. This makes it the first step toward dimensionality reduction, because if we choose to keep only p eigenvectors component out of n, the final data set will have only p dimensions there. Generally we got n dimensions there. So continuing with the example above state, the feature vector for both eigenvectors v1 and v2 will be like this, combinations of them. Or discard eigenvector v2. If you discard the v2, this particular vector, so we'll have only v1. So discarding v2 will reduce dimensionality by 1. So currently how many dimensions? 2 dimensions are there. And we have calculated the principal component variance also. This variance is high, this variance is low. So what we'll do, we'll delete this. When you delete that one, only one feature is remaining. So dimensionality reduction is got, that we have achieved from this particular method. And finally, principal component analysis will generate the final data set. So the aim is to feature vector formed using eigenvectors of covariance matrix to reorient of the data, the original axis, to one presented by the principal components. Hence the name is called as principal component analysis. So this can be done by multiplying the transpose of original data set by the transpose of feature vector. This is final data set is created. Feature vector transpose into standardized original data set transpose, and then we got the final data set created here, and that data set we will be using for building the machine learning model ahead. I'll show you, then we'll see the last point of it. A simple example, the example that we are having here, what that we contain. So as we have seen, these are the dimensions of the tumor detected in the body, and based on that diagnosis was done. for different patients. Okay, whether we have M or B. M means malignant. Okay, means it's cancer detected there, and B means benign. It's healthy, like that. And based on all 30 dimension, and we'll apply dimensionality reduction technique by which you reduce the number of dimension by using PCA, and we'll see whether there's any change for the accuracy present there or not. Okay, so let's see that. I'll read this data, this particular file here. The name of this file is WIC BC data, and from this data set, we will keep one variable in output and one variable. See this one. So list creating here. I'm deleting these two columns, so we'll get an idea practically how these operations are done here. And output variable is exactly diagnosis. Sorry, it's a problem. ID and diagnosis. ID and diagnosis. Were dropped. Yeah. So if you check the X here, see 30 features are extracted, 30 columns are there in it, 5 not 5 rows, many rows are there. I'm just showing first 5, and in case of Y only B and M2 are there. Okay, and if you describe, the all 30 columns are present, everyone is different, its deviation is different, and all completely they are different. 30 features are there. I don't want all these features, I don't want all of these dimensions, so we can apply the principal component analysis there, and based on that we will perform operations. So before principal component analysis, we have to scale down this data. So you have done min max scaling here, or maybe you can apply standard scaler also. So when standard scaler is applied, deviation of all will become same. So what I have done, a data is taken, X input variable, okay, which I have taken, and then we have scaled this data in the same range of 0 to 1. You can check it, everyone's minimum value is 0 and everyone's maximum value is 1. See, all they are scaled down. 30 features are there, 0 to 29. Fine. And after that, we can apply the principal component analysis. So to apply principal component analysis, I'll show the variance also caused by different features, and they will be sorted according to high number of variance. Then next. So we have done this. In decomposition, we have the PCA. Let's create the object of it. So it is created, and then components created after is like what we have done. Normalization is separately done. After that, we have taken covariance. After that, eigenvectors, and then variance is calculated. So let's see, PCA dot it transform on X scaled. Yeah, it's done. And now you can check X underscore PCA. See, this is transform data. Whatever we have seen as a part of algorithm, all they are applied, and data is transformed in PCA format. Okay, by applying the principal component analysis, we check the shape of it. Total 30 features are there. According to variance, they are sorted. According to the variance, they are sorted. The highest variance is here. Then lower, then lower, then lower, like low. It's going on. Lowest variance is in last feature present there. So this is how PCA is applied, and we got the variances here. Now I can make use of a method to check the variance which are caused by different kind of components, and they're sorted according to high variance, then low, like that. So let's see, PCA dot. See, these are the variance caused by different features which are present, different component are present. 30 components are there, the variance is shown over here. And if you want to visualize that, see, if you want to visualize it, so you can visualize also, these are the variance caused by them. See, okay, so this is on y-axis. Okay, on x-axis we'll have a range 1 to 30. Let's see this. Yeah, this is the variance caused by, these are the principal components from 0 to 30, and this is the variance caused by them. This is what the variance we got. After applying the PCA, the variance are identified by this covariance matrix, and then eigenvalues are used. Okay, then variance ratio we got for all 30. And you can see highest first principal component, then second, then third, fourth, fifth onwards. We got the variance of it. And you can observe now 20, 21 till 22 column only variance is present. After that, no variance is there. I mean, they are not actually important for building algorithm. So basically, if you build the algorithm without PCA and with PCA, we'll see the difference between them. Now see, first of all, I will use the algorithm, any specific algorithm without PCA. So this is what we have without PCA. Logistic regression algorithm has got 96% accuracy on that given data without PCA. As it is scale data I applied, and other tasks are same as we have seen in the previous example also. Logistic regression, we can apply other algorithm like support vector machine is there, random forest, decision tree is, let's see decision tree. Decision, sorry. So decision tree is known to us. So I will use decision tree classifier, and let's see. 86% accuracy the decision tree class. Logistic regression is having good accuracy, but 86% accuracy for decision tree classifier is present. Or if you use random forest, there is an ensemble. 96% accuracy there for random forest classifier that we can see. 96. Okay, great. Let's continue with that. Without PCA, I'm having this accuracy. If you check the number of features currently scaled is having, so all 30 features are taken here. All 30 features are taken right now. Now what I'll do, I'll take top one feature only. So what we will do here, I need to apply number of components. For example, one. Okay. So only one component I have taken now, which is having highest variance, and that component only I will apply here to perform operations with x underscore PCA. Now with it one component only with one component, principal component, I got 88% accuracy. Single component, 29 component are discarded, and I got 88% accuracy with random forest classifier. See the shape of XPCA, only one feature, one component is used. 29 components are deleted. So dimensions are reduced drastically. Complexity is reduced, and accuracy is also reduced but by 10% only. But if you check that, if you change this value, I have taken only one component. Let's take 5 components now. First 5 components, okay? Then apply. Now see, first 5 component I got 95.80% accuracy. Only with 5 components. Okay, shape of PCA which I'm using here, which is used to train the algorithm, same thing, only 5 features are there. I got 95%, like 96 almost same accuracy that I achieved from 30 dimension. I have achieved by I think 5 dimensions also. So 25 dimensions are reduced, 25 features are reduced, and accuracy is not drastically reduced, but training time will also reduce drastically, because 30% to 5. So we are having only 17% features remaining 83% I have removed, and with that number of features, similar accuracy I have achieved from the dataset. That is what advantage of the dimensionality reduction techniques are. The technique of PCA is basically working from this angle to reduce the number of dimensions and get or achieve similar amount of accuracy that we are having or we are available with original data also. So our training time will be reduced. So that's why shown in the presentation also, when there are large number of dimensions present, large number of features present, so we can extract specific features by finding the variance of them, and once the variance is high, those who contain high variance, only that features are taken in consideration, and we got the accuracy similarly. So you can check the differences, no much difference there, and now I can use only these 5 component, top 5 principal component, and go ahead with that. You can see the graph of it also. There's 5 principal component I've taken. See the top 5 components which contain highest variance, only they are taken. If I change it now, let's make it 10. So 10 compounds I'll be taking now, and for 10, 93 may reduced. See, accuracy is reduced now. It may be possible. So when less number of dimensions, it means that when you increase the number of features, maybe also possible to reduce the dimension. Reduce the accuracy there. So optimal number of features we have to consider, and based on that only the algorithm building should be done. Okay, so this is the way that we follow to have or use the principal compound analysis for dimensionality reductions. Many such methods are there. PCA is mentioned in the syllabus. There's one more method called LDA. LDA is also applied, but LDA is effective method. I mean, so whatever accuracy that you got in 5 component, LDA will give in 1 component only. Okay, that also we can try by your own. Fine. That is what principal component analysis is. And the last topic, that is clustering high dimensional data. So PCA is used for supervised learning. Let's talk about the high dimensional data and clustering there. When again number of dimensions are high, then how do we solve this clustering method? Clustering techniques. So we have seen 2 clustering techniques already. One is k-means clustering and another is hierarchical clustering. Okay. So k-means uses the distance measures of Euclidean distance, and based on that it creates the clusters. But if huge number of dimensions are there, then how clustering will help? So clustering high dimensional data is the cluster analysis of data with anywhere from few dozens of many thousands of dimensions, thousands, from 12 to 15 to 20 to 30 to 100 to thousands. How this clustering is possible? So such high dimensional spaces of data are often encountered in areas like medicine. We have seen that example, medicine, where like DNA microarray technologies can produce many measurements at once, and the clustering of text document where the word frequency vector is used, a number of dimensions equal to size of vocabulary are there. So huge number of dimensions are present and available. That case, some problem may occur. And what are the problems present when you are having high dimensional data when you want to create the clustering techniques there? So multiple dimensions are hard to think in, impossible to visualize. How it is possible to visualize? So we have seen the examples by multiple dimensions, we can check it out. But if it is going about 30, 50 thousands, then how to visualize that? How to create a clusters in that? So due to the exponential growth of the number of possible values with each dimension, complete enumeration of all subspaces become intractable, and because increasing dimensionality, and this problem is called as curse of dimensionality, which is solved from the classification point of view in principal computer analysis, but from clustering point of view, how this should be solved. The concept of distance becomes less precise as the number of dimension grows. Yes, we have seen distance formulas which are used in clustering methods, or which are used in the agglomerative clustering methods there. Okay, so distance between any 2 points in the given data set converges. So the discrimination of nearest and farthest point in particular becomes meaningless in such cases. So the formula mentioned here, the limit of d to infinity is equal to distance max minus minimum distance divided by minimum distance. That should be equal to 0, and that will become 0. Okay, so because of that, clustering of high dimensional data is a critical part of solution. So it's not obviously done 100% time, but let's see something we can apply. A cluster is intended to group objects that are related, that we know. So based on the observations of their attributes, values, however, the given large number of attributes or some of the attributes will usually not meaningful for the clusters. So given large number of attributes, it's likely that some attributes are correlated. Correct. Obviously, it's possible there. Many attributes are correlated with each other. Hence, cluster might exist in arbitrary oriented affine subspaces. See, if you talk about this data set here, and if you're going to see the correlation matrix for it, see, very huge matrix created, and something are connected together. See, you can check it. Perimeter mean and radius mean are correlated with each other. Correct, 99% correlated. So can I remove that? Others. Can check one by. This is 95, 96%. Perimeter and radius mean, and any other 91%. So these correlations are actually playing very important role to identify and to remove that. So the dimension will be less, and after that we can create the cluster easily. So there are some problems, some solutions to these problems are available, and these are the clustering methods. Okay, we're having overview of this clustering method, which are used for high dimensional data. So first method is a subspace clustering. Second method is projected clustering. Third is projection-based clustering, and the last is correlation clustering technique. Let's see overview of these particular methods. Okay, the first method is subspace. Now, what is it does? So it is the extension of traditional clustering, which seeks to find a cluster in different subspace within the data set. Different subspace within the data set. Traditional clustering like k-means we have. So when we have the high dimensional data, many dimensions are irrelevant and can mask existing clusters in noisy, okay, in the noisy data. So like outliers are present that we got a noisy data. So feature selection method removes irrelevant and redundant dimensions by analyzing the entire data set. Okay, what that features are? That features are relevant, irrelevant, or connected, not connected, that will be removed, and redundant features will be removed, and then exact features which are relevant or not redundant only they are considered. So subspace clustering algorithm localize the search for relevant dimensions, allowing them to find cluster that exist multiple possibly overlapping subspaces. That is what subspace clustering does. Actually, its algorithm is very complicated when having high dimensions, and to reduce that. Okay, this subspace clustering will be used. The second method is projected clustering. Okay, so projected clustering is the first top-down partitioning projected clustering algorithm based on the notion of k-medoid clustering. K-medoid. K means and k-medoid. Medoid means median. Like in K means every time when you create a cluster, okay, we take average of all the point assigned that cluster, and new centroid is calculated. But in case of this clustering, k-medoid, we find a median of all the points which are present in that cluster, which was presented by Agarwal in 1999. So it determined the medoid for each cluster repetitively on the sample of data using greedy hill climbing technique, and then upgrade the result repetitively every time. The clusters are upgraded, and but operations are identified with the help of median of the point which are added there in the cluster. Fine. And the cluster quality in the projected clustering is a function of average distance between data points and the closest medoid. Also, the substrate dimensionality is an input framework which generates the clusters of like sizes. It's called a projected clustering. The third is projection based clustering. Okay, no many differences are there, but it is based on the non-linear projection. Non-linear things are there. So high dimensional data, so into two-dimensional space conversion is possible by projection methods. What it does, these projection methods are used. These projection methods are like T distributed stochastic neighbor embedding, TSNE, or neighbor retrieval visualizer, okay, NERV. These are used project data explicitly into two dimensions, disregarding the subspaces of higher dimension than two, and preserving only relevant neighborhoods in the high dimensional data. Next step, okay, the only graph is there, which is created between the projected points calculated, and each vertex between two projected points is weighted with the high dimensional distance between the corresponding high dimensional data points. This is what the algorithm it has used. And the last algorithm, which is clustering, which is based on the correlation concept. So clustering is a problem of partitioning data quantity group based on their similarity. Okay, so in case of correlation method, correlation clustering, it provides the method of clustering a set of objects into optimum number of clusters without specifying that number in advance. Okay, it checks it. Like in general clustering, KMS, we are keeping how many clusters you want, but in case of cluster correlation clustering, it's not mentioned there. It will identify what is the optimal value that we can find. identifying the correlation among different data points present in the data set, and then correlation clustering will be creating the clusters. If they are correlated, they are discarded. If they are not correlated, then only the simple different groups of the data will be formulated over here. So these are the techniques which are used for clustering the high dimensional data. Okay, practically they are very difficult to write the code for them. That's why it's not shown practically here. We just can focus on PCA method, which are used to reduce the dimensionality, and the cost of dimensionality can also be decreased at some extent with the help of that particular technique. So few more are there. That's not their part of syllabus, but you can try by your own. Okay, so that's what the theory concepts are there. Only one topic is remaining now. It's a practical number 4. That's visualization of the data by multiple ways. One uh, concept is used. Different graphs are mentioned there. One data set on different graphs that we'll see in the upcoming session tomorrow. So if you're having any question regarding the theory parts here, so you can ask. All the presentation I have uploaded on the given link. You can download from there. And one practical is remaining only that will complete by tomorrow. Okay, within some 45 minutes to 1 hour, we'll complete that particular practical. So as we are done till this particular point, okay, that's uh, as you are doing the practicals, just try by your own system, so it will be very easily understandable. So if you have any doubts or questions, you can ask, or we'll continue the remaining topic in tomorrow's session. Okay.